Day Church, this is Jeff Reinke, and it's a joy for me to be able to present to you from Deuteronomy chapter 6. And the message that I want to share with you today is that I believe this is the finest hour for the church to shine, to be the light of the world, and to be the salt of the earth. We've never lived in a time, an unprecedented time as we are today. And this is the season, the moment that the church can rise up and manifest the radiant glory of Christ. And we see four principles that I want to share with you very quickly from Deuteronomy chapter 6 that are very relevant for us today. And God comes to Moses and he asks him to go to the children of Israel and to do four things. The first thing he says, I want you to prepare them. So let me read from verse 1. Now this is the commandment, and these are the statutes and the judgments which the Lord your God has commanded to teach you, that you may observe them in the land which you are crossing over to possess, that you may fear the Lord your God, to keep all his statutes and his commandments, which I command you, and you and your son and your grandson, all the days of your life, and that your days may be prolonged. Therefore, hear, O Israel, and be careful to observe it, that it may be well with you, and that you may multiply greatly as the Lord your God, your fathers, has promised you. And then in verse 6, it says, and these words which I command you today, that you shall put them in their heart, you shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk to them when you sit down, when you rise up, when you walk by the way. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets. And then the last thing I want to share with you in verse 12, that there's a warning. Therefore beware lest you forget the Lord that he brought you out of slavery, out of the land of Israel, from the house of bondage. And you shall not go after the other gods, the gods of the peoples who are all around you. So we see that God is preparing the children of Israel for a new way of living. It's laying down the ethos, the cultural values, the standards, the principles, the policies that they are to be governed by, knowing that God is their ruler, that he is the king, and they're to abide and to be obedient to him. And we need to understand that as they go into the promised land, that they're entering into a system, into a world that is contrary to God. So it is with today, that we live in a culture, we live in a worldly system, that there's a diabolical plot behind the system that we live in that is antithetical and in opposition to the things of God. Jesus said that if they hated me, that they will hate you. So we have to be prepared for what is in store for us. But this is the shining hour for us. But we have to be prepared. Number two is that purification is the means. There's a time that God is purifying us in order to prepare us. There's a shaking going on. There's a shifting going on in the culture. This is the season, the opportunity, that the window of opportunity is there for us. But we have to be open to what God is doing. He's shaking institutions. He's stripping those things that we put our hope, those things that we've attached to, those things that we put value into, that we're realizing that no longer do we have. Why is this happening? So that God would prepare us. But in order to prepare us, he needs to purify us. And then thirdly, is that God is warning us that we have to be ready to persevere. Jesus says, in the world you will have tribulation. But he says to be of good joy because I've overcome the world. It's the world system, this cosmos, this demonic rulership, that the prince of the power of the air that is governing the affairs of man. Jesus, when he spoke to the Pharisees, the religious leaders, he said, you are from beneath and I am from above. You are of this world and I am from the kingdom of heaven. So you and I, that we have been set apart from the world, and we've been set apart to God. That's why it's called ecclesia. We are the called out ones. We are the church. And he set us apart that we're to be the salt of the earth and the light of the world. And so he's setting us apart. We're to be holy. He's given us his Holy Spirit. He's given us the Holy Scriptures. He's called us to be a holy nation, a royal priesthood, because we are his sanctified ones. And then lastly, not only is he calling us and preparing us, he's purifying us, and that we have to persevere, but there's a process, and that process is obedience. This is a time that we need to make hard, difficult decisions to sacrifice from those things that we put our hope into, and we need to separate ourselves unto God. And Jesus said, before he went to heaven, he said to his disciples, he said, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And I will be with you always to the end of the earth, to be obedient to all the things that I've taught you. So God is calling us to be obedient to his calling, just like he told the children of Israel to obey his commands, to obey and observe his statutes. So I want to say to you, is God is with you, God is preparing you, he's purifying you, and we're in this process that we are to rise up and be the church that waits the return of Jesus Christ. God bless you and have a great day. Bye-bye.